Good. Good morning, Livestream. We're about to go live on the radio. Good morning, Philadelphia, and listeners on WWDB 860 and everywhere else via the live stream. It's Monday morning, President's Day. This is Kevin O'Brien. I'm with Wayne Middleton. You're listening to the SMB Acceleration Show. Before we get into anything today, just remember, if you miss anything on today's show, you can get it on our website, smbacceleration.com, on the YouTube channel, or anywhere podcasts are found. So, it's about that time. Wayne, how was the trip in?
Well, I have to say, I'm thankful for President's Day, because for once, my commute in was good. I wasn't late. This is always a result. Yeah, the roads were clear.
Oh, excellent. That's a good thing. I have to tell you, I had the funniest conversation yesterday with my kids. And they wanted to know how you felt about the king. And I was like, what? And they're like, somehow we were talking about, like, the Revolutionary War came up and President's Day and George Washington. And then they were like, wait, your friend from the radio show, he's from England? I was like, yes. And my daughter's like, how does he feel about the king? I was like, well, I don't know if he really knew the king. You know, the king was a couple hundred years ago.
Yeah. I will say this to it, is come 4th of July, it's always one of those weird times of year for me where I want to celebrate, but should I?
Yeah. Oh, that's what I was, and I was like, well, I imagine, like, none of us really care. It just is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, history's history. I wasn't part of that, and I don't think any of my family were part of that revolution, so, whatever. We lost out on a fantastic country that we could have ruled, which we would have given back to you eventually anyway. Let's be honest, we're not very good at keeping things. So yeah, I'm not overly worried about it. I will say this: what scares me most is the idea that Prince Charles could ever become king. That scares me because the guy's not so smart.
What do you got for us, Dan?
No, but I'll work on one.
Yeah, that could be a T-shirt design.
It could.
For your
I might have to do that one. Yeah, I could think of many.
Oh, but yes, I thought it was a quite the interesting. I was like, oh,
yeah, it's a good. Yeah. I mean, kudos for connecting the two things together.
I was impressed. I was like, they were like, how do you feel about the king? I was like, I didn't know him. I mean,
yeah, he's probably kind of a nice guy, maybe.
Yeah, I was like,
highly unlikely.
Yeah, I just didn't want to get into the,
the political side.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. We don't do politics on the SMB Acceleration show. So
hey, and if you want to call in, call in with any questions about whether we like the king or not.
Taking questions on the king all day.
Call toll free on 888-329-3306. You can talk to us about the king, the Elvis King, or anything else you want to talk about. But let's try to keep it to the small business folks.
Oh, well, we got a lot going on today with President's Day for you and I. The roads didn't seem like there was a lot going on.
Yeah, no, it was really quiet, great commute in, and as I say, I can't knock it. Even 76 was favourable today, which is rare. So, I'll take it.
I'll tell you, I guess a lot of people are off.
Yeah, it was actually surprising, and we was talking about this in the parking lot, is I can honestly say in my time of coming to the US, I can't remember having a President's Day holiday.
Yeah, I know.
It existed, but my company's never partook. And my wife's off today, so she's fortunate she's got the day off. But there's very few companies, I think, that
still offer it.
Yeah, so. Well, yeah, kind of interesting, especially when you consider there's so much less traffic out there as well.
It's nice, actually.
Yeah,
it's like a holiday for those of us that have to work.
Yep. So let's talk about small business news. What did we hear about today? Anything stand out to you?
I actually saw this interesting article that wasn't specifically tied to small business, but it was tied to social media, and it actually had this strange tie into another article I saw. So Philadelphia Magazine had this recent article, I think I saw it on Facebook, of millennial mayors in Pennsylvania. And it was saying about how there's this I don't know if they're growing or just in the most recent elections. The article was actually from the 15th, so just the other day. And it was saying how this group of mayors throughout Pennsylvania are millennials. They're very social media, digital savvy. And most of them are in towns that are hit by, the like kind of the downturn, the old steel towns, etc.
Yeah.
And just how, they're looking to make this comeback. And, it's an interesting angle on how, we're not going to talk politics. I don't even know what the people's politics are, but it's interesting that they all have this same shared goal of, how do you fix this downtown area in the small towns?
Yeah, it's interesting because you think about it, it ties in nicely to small business because it's about revitalization of small towns, right?
Yeah.
And how you typically try to revitalize is by bringing in some higher end stores. So, that's one way. The other way is, do we look at, what kind of industries can we serve? We've got lots of open spaces, we've got lands. Do we build up? Do we try to do that? Is there the growth potential for a company looking to maybe move down from New York and come to I'm going to pick on Allentown just because it's going through this as we speak.
Yeah.
Allentown put a lot of money into downtown, invested a hell of a lot of money in trying to revitalize it, and it's still going on. And there's significant tax breaks companies can look for, and they're trying to encourage not only big industries. There's a lot of software companies are starting to move down there, but they're encouraging small businesses too. There's an agency out there that are relocating, and the reason they're relocating, which is a big deal for a company of like 50 odd people, there's a lot of things they have to do, is cheaper to move closer to Allentown downtown for them, and they're getting significant tax break to do it.
Okay.
So they originally got into their office space right now, and they own that office space, but it's cost them a lot over the course of the cycle of the company's life cycle. So now they're making this decision to go more to a rented property, but downtown Allentown, they get more for their money, they're getting a significant tax break, and fundamentally, it's probably a better situation for them in terms of getting people in the door. If a client comes along, rather than coming off of a turnpike and then trying to figure out how to get to the office, they can actually just come straight to the office.
Straight downtown.
You can take them out to some good restaurants for lunch and things like that. So it builds up a lot of good business opportunities. So I think it's interesting that it's millennials that are kind of pushing this agenda. And there's a ton of like small towns, and you drive through them every now and again. You're like, how does this place still exist? There's nothing here.
Oh.
But the potential upside of it could be significant for small businesses.
Absolutely. It makes me think. I was driving through somewhere in eastern Pennsylvania, and it was just my wife and I. We didn't have the kids, and I was like, oh, you know what? Let me look. I'll find a brewery or something. Wherever we were going, we were kind of like ahead of the schedule, and I was like, I always like to check out something new. And it turned out that this brewery was inside like a bakery, which was also a coffee shop, all in one. And it was really, it was an interesting establishment to say the least. But also, it kind of led me to my first thought was, how is this place still open? Like, how is this little downtown area still open?
Yeah, because they probably, beyond the local community, they probably don't get much new business coming in. So, what can you do to kind of improve your chances? Well, one thing for sure, and we know this because we've talked about it a lot, is the significance of combining your Google efforts, but also with Yelp now offering advertising and things like that.
That local
and
kind
tied
of
into ways.
reviews and
exactly,
absolutely.
It elevates your profile. So as you're saying, if you're driving through and you're coming to that point where it's like, I need to get some lunch, and you're in a part of town that you don't know, or in a town that you don't know, the first thing you typically do is Google it or look on your GPS to find the nearest restaurant. So how do you increase your rankings on that? And depending on what GPS system you use, there's Waze, there's the Google Maps, etc., etc. That's an opportunity for small businesses to kind of elevate and potentially pick up more foot traffic than they would normally.
No, it's a great point. It really is, and Yelp's a great tie-in, especially for that local search and trying to, because we talked about it's always interesting to try and find somewhere new because you're trying to like gauge the reviews versus other reviews in the area and what are people saying before you show up, and if especially if you're traveling with people, the kids, etc. You're like, well, is this place going to be appropriate, not appropriate?
Well, I also think it's creating a bit more of a level playing field.
Absolutely.
To get your Google ads going, it can be very expensive for small businesses, especially things like restaurants and things like that, where there's a number of you all competing for the same, more or less the same keywords. Maybe having that Yelp channel and using their advertising can give you that slight competitive edge that perhaps the others are not doing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and it kind of ties in the whole Philly Mag article and, the importance of trying to revitalize, downtown areas. I saw a article in Forbes online that was about, big marketing trends impacting small business. And they had the lady, Laura Goldberg, who's the Chief Revenue Officer for Cabbage, which is a small business, they do small business loans.
Yeah.
And, she just said that, her biggest trend that they're seeing is that they think these Main Street businesses will have a renaissance. It's an interesting tie-in to these social media savvy mayors and people trying to, bring to downtown areas. And that's something that I always think about when I'm shopping in a downtown area is, what could they do to make it better? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times I don't even know all the businesses that I drive past, say on my way to the grocery store or any place. It's not, most of the time there's probably something I could use instead of me having to go further, but I don't know it exists.
Yeah, I mean that's true, and I think even down here in Philly, when we first moved over, we ended up in Chestnut Hill, and Chestnut Hill has been through ups and downs over the course of its existence, and now there's a lot. We went down there. It's been a while since we've been in that area, and we was looking for a specific brunch place that we used to eat. Now, unfortunately, that brunch place doesn't exist anymore. But what I noticed was, the boutiques are still there. There's one or two. There's a few less. Mm-hmm. There's a few more restaurants, and they're like secret little gems. And from what we could see, the reviews and everything else, they look really good. What I've also noticed in that specific area, some of the real mainstay places, I mean, they have a hardware store on Chestnut Hill that's been there for 30, 40 odd years. Yeah. And it's still doing great business. What they've done is they've just changed up the shop front a little bit, and they've kind of really put some thought into how someone walks into that hardware store.
Oh, interesting.
And we talk a lot about creating an experience. Well, if you walk in there, the people are extremely friendly. They're very, very, very helpful, even for an idiot like me who's about as DIY savvy as a plank of wood. I went in there, and I remember when we lived there, I was asking them for advice on how to repair. I can't remember exactly what it was to repair, but it was probably the Latham model kind of plastering. Okay. And we had a slight issue where something went through the wall and created a hole. So I was like, how do I fix that? And they were very nice, and the experience that I had in there always made me go to that rather than the Home Depot or the next door. They're trained to be helpful, but it does come across as that you're taking their time when they could be doing other things. Whereas in a little mom and pop shop like that, the personal touch was everything, and that's why I would always use that particular
Absolutely.
place.
I think that's where they have to compete on, is that personalized, service and all. And actually, it always makes me think. I think there's this really interesting role the small business associations should be playing. I don't think most of them are. So this is my kind of advice to small business associations, because I think there's this real benefit of doing things in aggregate for downtown areas, and really being able to take that kind of aggregate ability to run an ad campaign just promoting the whole downtown area. It's not often you see business associations with strong campaigns
There's strength in unity, right? So
Yes.
strength in numbers. So if you can get a series of small businesses in your local town all contributing a little bit to an ad spend, but rather than focusing on their specific business, you talk about the downtown area as a whole. It's definitely something that I haven't really seen done.
No.
And maybe that could be a really big difference between getting more people to use local or shop local than opposed to, going to the strip malls and everything else that we tend to use more frequently. But
Yeah,
it's an
absolutely. That's
interesting
kind of what
avenue.
I've thought about. If you all pooled together, you could easily get good drone footage of the whole downtown area and split that amongst everybody. And
Absolutely.
then at the same time, as somebody who you have directed, video and photo shoots for small businesses, I'd imagine that it'd be just as easy while that day you're already out there to do 10 businesses as much easy as it is to do one.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough to work on a town website where they were trying to encourage the idea that people could shop downtown and talking about local amenities. And again, the challenges a lot of these smaller towns face is the fact that you live there, but you don't always know what's available to you. And so, again, as a township, I'm going to pick on Allentown as a whole, is like create a great web experience that's easy for someone to use, answer the questions that people are looking for, which is, hey, what's my local restaurants? What are the best restaurants in a local area? How do I do this? What do I do this? Where can I get this particular product from? If you can do that in a government website, and you can create that kind of idea of community, I think it would benefit the local economy. It would also benefit the small business owners and shop store owners. And I think it's a win-win for everyone. It's a different approach, and I think that's something that's
That'd be my
kind of
thought. It'd be
exciting.
something like Wendy we had on, like a company like that, the Wendy Saltzman company or somebody's, that does that video. It'd be interesting to figure out for a township, like a downtown area, what does it cost, and how do you do it? A great example I'll tell you is Media in Delaware County does
Yes.
Dining Under the Stars, which is genius because they close the whole road off.
Yep.
So that it really forces people to get out, utilize the street,
And
plan to
test
go
out
to
local foods and
Yeah.
beer and beverages, and it gets everyone it gets a real community feel, and I think that's
retail shops,
That's huge.
art galleries and florists and everybody else benefits from that ancillary, foot traffic of
Yeah.
people being down there.
absolutely.
No, it's amazing how much opportunity is out there. So I mean, if you are any of the local business associations, I would definitely say there's tremendous opportunity to leverage the power of all your members into cohesive marketing.
Absolutely, and some of the other news. We digress from the news
Yeah.
a bit, but I think this is a great conversation because it's a lot of the challenges small business owners will have is how do I get more customers? How do I grow my reach? Well, get your whole small business community together and maybe start these conversations. How can we be stronger together rather than trying to treat us as individual businesses? It may give you a competitive edge and it may help drive sales. Some of the other interesting things that we came across this weekend on the Business to Community website was their blog, I believe, on the 7 fundamental Facebook advertising tips.
Yeah, no, they were good.
They were good, and again, it's all focused around small business. They're talking about match campaign objective to your goals. They're covering like how to identify and find your target audience using the often maligned business manager audience insights. So, if nothing else, it might help you understand how to use Facebook business manager
Absolutely.
tools. But it's actually full of great little, there you go, simple little insights on how to kind of improve your marketing through Facebook, and there's some really good little insights in here. It's
Yeah, I
really
love
worth
the
checking it out.
geo targeting mention.
Yeah.
And making sure you have that right. I mean, I think that is probably the simplest type of layer you could have to your ad that makes the most difference. Is what?
Yeah.
Do it within your 10, 15-mile service radius, and at worst case, probably that, and excluding people under a certain age if you're like selling it to homeowners or something is probably not a bad idea, but it's a pretty quick way to save yourself a lot of money in ad budget while hitting the people, targeting the people you really want to.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a big part on, and it's a small little section of content in there, but I think it's actually something you should look at is frequency of your ads. So keeping tabs on how often your ads are being served, how many impressions you're getting, and not be afraid to kind of switch it up. And if that ad specifically isn't performing, kind of look at your insights and try to understand why it's not performing, then adjust it.
No, that's a great point.
So it's really worth checking out. It's on businesstocommunity.com, and it's about the Facebook 7 fundamentals of Facebook marketing, advertising tips.
Yeah,
Definitely worth looking at. Again, we'll probably dive into a bit more around it. We talk a lot about Facebook.
we sure do.
We're trying to open up our content a bit, but
No, absolutely. And I think we're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, we're going to kind of dive into a really interesting, article that sparked a conversation over the weekend between us on stress and small business ownership. So when we get back, we'll get into that. And if you miss anything, check out the website, SMBAcceleration.com.
Awesome.
Livestream. We'll be back in just a minute.
If you're on Livestream and you've got some questions for us, don't be afraid to use the chat feature. We're monitoring it all throughout the show. So if you've got some questions for us regarding Facebook or around stress or any of the topics we're talking about, give us a ping and we'll try to answer you live on air.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, I'll just be drinking pink cement.
It wouldn't be Monday without the pink cement.
Oh, everyone at work now just sees it asked.
Yeah.
I just call it pink cement. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah. Ugh. Good old pink cement.
Yeah, the breakfast of champions. Yeah, the stress was interesting, so it'd be good.
Yeah.
Good topic. I never really say in that, like, get that your local business community together, and rather than trying to spend ads just on your own, why not unify?
Yeah.
It might grow your reach.
They can even share the pixel data.
Yeah.
Small business associations. Don't sleep on this.
Yeah, it's a great tip. If you don't use it, others will.
Mm-hmm. It really is something that can make a big difference.
It can be. I really, again, you're going to spend less but get more. That's what I think is the most important thing. Whereas you're trying to do it on your own, I mean, you're going to end up having to spend more and more and more to even get vaguely competitive, not only from your own town, but the surrounding towns that may or may not. Like plumbers are a perfect example.
Yeah.
Like they're using a lot of traditional media, certainly, but their website could be a massive part of it.
You're right. All right, we're back. And before we get into it, I just got to mention, if you miss anything on today's show, be sure to download the podcast or subscribe to the YouTube channel. Keep up with everything that's happening today, and you can see it on our website, SMBAcceleration.com. So Wayne, this was a extremely interesting article that sparked a lot of conversation between us.
Yeah, so let's get in. Let's talk about this a little bit. As a small business owner, and even in my day-to-day, like when I was working for a company, managing stress is one of those really difficult things to do, and it's something that affects everyone. And it can be, when you're stressed, when you're going down that, and you start hitting that kind of perhaps depression as well. How do you? One thing is how do you get out of it without necessarily medication? What can you do to kind of get a better balance in your life? We all talk about work-life balance, and I think the way we think about that is perhaps not necessarily conducive or realistic. And I think one thing conducive to relieving the stress that's actually causing it. Life balance is really about, I think, is not just about balancing it with your family and everything in between. It's actually about making your life a little less stressful. Let's face it, owning a small business is stressful. Where's the next paycheck coming from? How am I going to grow? What am I going to do? Do I need to grow? That employee is doing something he shouldn't do. How do I handle that situation? there's a lot of day-to-day stress that we all deal with. And the article came off of entrepreneur.com, was talking about the effect, just getting outside, and the effect that can have on helping to manage and balance your life a little bit more. So it's managing that stress, and it's creating a balance in your life.
I think it's really important, because I think as small business owners, that's something you really are always dealing with is stress.
Yeah.
It's inherent to being the risk taker, small business owner, right?
Yep.
As it's inherent that there's this risk, because you're not guaranteed a paycheck, and probably even for a lot of small business owners, bigger than that is the fact of making payroll.
Yeah.
So if you're in a business that's just growing or something, you always have that continued stress of, oh man, I know I have to pay all my people for the week, and how do I, that's going to be constantly on my mind, because they have families, and
see a downturn in the economy. Anything can trigger. It's all weighing on top of you constantly, and so managing that stress and trying to figure out how to balance it better. I just felt this article was really poignant. It talks a lot about it gives you some ideas about going outside and trying to do some stuff. Because, running your own business can be extremely exciting as well, but you have to take a step away. You have to be able to relax. And for me, that's going fishing, right? Or being out in a kayak, or going for a hike on Hawk Mountain, as we do. And that's a way for me to handle my stress. I get out of the house, I go and do something. I'm not plugged into technology whatsoever. So I go off the grid even if it's just for a couple of hours. It's amazing the difference that makes. And you can come back to things much fresher. Even in my day-to-day, if I'm trying to reach out and I'm doing a lot of networking, I'm trying to bring some more business in. If that gets stressful throughout the day, I'll take a 20-minute. I'll go and walk the dog for 20 minutes just to kind of decompress. And it's surprising, once you've done that and you come back to the problem that you're facing, you can handle it much better, and it's not all consuming, and you can look at it slightly differently. And actually what you end up finding is what was causing the stress initially was not the task you're trying to solve. It's actually some other things around it. So I think getting out and doing things, and it can be as simple as taking a walk. It could be as simple as going for a walk and grabbing a coffee, having to sit down and just kind of switching off for a little while, sitting down, reading a book if the weather's not good. Something to just kind of take 10 almost, and decompress, and then then come back to that problem and see if you can solve it that way.
Yeah, I think it's hard though a lot of times, especially for small business owners, because you get into that mode. Oh well, if I don't do it, who's going to do this? So then you tell yourself, I don't have the time to take a break, or I just don't have it. I can't do it right now, right? And then you kind of pile that stress on yourself, and all of a sudden you're
it's a snowball.
Yeah, why is it getting worse? And it was making, or the conversation had me looking. I was like, let me see, what do they say the implications of stress are? And it's actually, I didn't realize how many physical and mental symptoms you can have, health-wise, attributed to high stress.
So I think what's really interesting, if you look at it, and again, we're getting our information from WebMD. So I think when it comes to symptoms, it's normally a good indicator. So as a business owner, I think your energy is what drives it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's important. But one of the symptoms of stress is low energy. So if you're stressed, how effective are you really being?
Yeah.
You're getting constant headaches. That distracts you. You're not able to focus as well as you should be able to.
I know that for myself. When I am stressed about something, it tends to lead to me sleeping poorly. Yeah. And then I feel like that next day is just a lot of times a struggle, because I've slept poorly. Whatever is on my mind, I haven't resolved, and next thing I know, I'm like, oh gosh, and I'm tired, and it does start to snowball. Yep. So I think this article is really interesting about the benefits of being out in nature.
Yeah, combating sleep, right? So if you're struggling to sleep because you're stressed, if you're getting out and you're actually being active, even as much as going to the gym or going for a walk, whatever it is, you're building up your energy, or you're using that energy reserve, and it actually helps you sleep better. And I think one of the most important things to handle stress or life in general is to make sure you get regular sleep and
Absolutely.
have a good sleep schedule, because the moment you deviate from that schedule, and I do it a lot, self-admittedly, if I deviate from my sleep schedule, I find I'm definitely less energetic. I tend to take things a little more personally than perhaps I would normally.
Yeah.
And I can really feel it throughout the day, not only just in my mental health, but in my physical too. It's like just having that less energy to be able to do something. It's frustrating.
No,
So
it absolutely
that
is.
itself builds up more stress for me.
I think it's an interesting thing. So I was at like a family event over the weekend, and we were talking about motivation, willpower, and I was saying, my kids really like Jocko Willink's series of books, The Way of the Warrior Kid, and also I've been reading that with him, and he has a very interesting one. His book for adults, one of them, is basically discipline equals freedom. So his whole thing is you should just do it because you should have the discipline in life to do it.
Yeah.
Which is, I tend to agree with, but as someone who doesn't always stick to my own sleep schedule, and I'm poorly disciplined, I guess, and things like that, especially if I'm like working on a project and I'm kind of into it, and you're like, oh man, I gotta stick with what I'm doing. I'm really working at this high rate. But one of his real mantras of it is, for people that say they can't get up early, is if you really want to get up early, exercise the day before. So you go to bed tired, then you're forced to wake up early because you went to bed tired.
Yeah, a lot of the time that is the problem. And I will say, as someone who historically has had terrible sleep patterns, yeah, absolutely. If I go and exercise the night before, and I will sometimes go into this, I have an exercise bike. I'll go in there for like half an hour to an hour and just pedal and pedal and pedal and pedal. I am physically tired, so even if I'm struggling to sleep, by separating myself for a little while, going and doing something like that, I will naturally start to fall asleep at that point. I mean, I think the first real step in managing your stress is to really identify what the cause is, and it's not always easy to do. And
no,
I
think that's the genius of this article about unplugging.
I also think it ties really well to discipline too, because a lot of the time, for me personally, what causes me stress is my own procrastination. Quite frankly, is if I'm not, if I've got a project on, my natural instinct is to push, and that doesn't help, because there has to be a time where that pushing has to stop for a little while so you can decompress. One of the other big things that people are guilty of, whether we realize it or not, is really putting off those deadlines, those important things, and saying, okay, I'm just going to move it because I can't make it at this point. Discipline keeps you on your deadline.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if deadlines are one of the things that's triggering your stress to increase, being organized, thinking ahead slightly and saying, okay, that's my goal, I can't move it, how do I get there? And just having that discipline to be able to think through it a little bit differently, and maintain good sleep patterns, maintain exercise regimes, and do things like that, and taking that 15-minute break so you're not staring at the screen constantly. Being disciplined has a massive part to play with handling stress and actually being a better business owner.
No, you're right, it does. I probably couldn't agree more. I think sometimes where I've been a poor failing business owner is probably because of like falling into that stress-induced like cycle of, no, I just have to get up and do this and not taking care of like the mental side of, man, I should get out and take a walk. And then I think now that we sit here and have had the conversation, it makes me think at times where I'm probably the best business owner is where I was always getting it consistently outside, walking, unplugged.
Yeah. I think we're guilty of trying to take on too much. And, I know in myself, I would rather say yes than no to most things.
Yeah.
And so what that does, though, even if you're not a small business owner, this is great tips for just careers in general. Don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to sort of say, hey, that's not my wheelhouse. That's not what I'm here for. So I'm going to stick to this. Because the moment you start to deviate, the moment you start to kind of try to do something that perhaps is not your most comfortable, probably not playing on your strengths, that's when you start having doubts. That elevates your stress, because then what ends up happening as a result of that, you're not confident, and you're starting to look at that deadline. That deadline becomes ominous rather than, okay, that's my goal. And deadlines are nothing but goals. That's where you need to get to. And if you're not confident in what you're doing, you start to put it off. And
That's a great point.
And you're putting off just the exercise of doing it, let alone anything else. And so therefore your deadline's affected. Then the deadline adds to that stress. And so, again, being afraid to say no is definitely damaging. And I've seen it. I can honestly say in my career, I've probably had situations where I've done that to myself and tried to bite off too much.
Mm-hmm.
And the detrimental aspect of that is my stress goes up. I become very difficult to live with, as my wife will probably contest to.
Yeah.
But it could be as simple as just saying no, or just saying, hey, you know what? I appreciate that you have this faith in me, but I'm not comfortable with it.
It's a great point, because it really does affect everything, and then affects you at like the life outside of, the small business. But I think that's a really good one. And sometimes I think, getting out in nature's outstanding, especially if you're in a industry where you're plugged in all the time.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays we all have a phone, so we're always on, no matter what you think. And one of the biggest disciplines to try to stick to, and I've tried this, and trust me, it's not easy, is I'm not going to check email after I get home from work.
Nice.
So once if I leave the office, I should be able to leave the office with everything where it needs to be, so that when I come in on the next day, I know exactly what I'm meant to be working on. So therefore, I don't need to check email, right? And if there is something that blows up overnight, is it really going to hurt me that much that I have to go back and start? You know what I mean? Like, do I need to respond immediately? The reality is no, you don't, because realistically, what can you do to fix it? You're out of you're out of work. You're out of your mental state of mind of like, okay, this is where I'm at, and you're at home. And if you start controlling the time that you spend checking your email is one of the biggest things you can do to kind of relieve your stress. A good friend of mine does it really well. He comes home and he lives on his phone. He's a sales guy, so everything comes through his phone.
Okay.
And so what he does when he comes home, he just turns it off, and he leaves it
completely,
every single day.
That's awesome.
And I will tell you, it's hard. It really is hard, because not only do I use my phone for business, but I use my phone to look at YouTube, or I'm watching videos, or whatever I'm doing. And it's that habit of, okay, I'm on YouTube, I'm watching that, just quickly check email, see what's going on. Then you break your own rule. But that, honestly, in a world where we're always on, getting outside, just leave your phone at home. Get out, go and do a bike ride, go and take the dog for a walk. If you're listening to music with your phone, great, but just put it in your pocket and listen to music. Don't have it on, don't check it. In fact, I still feel, even if you're walking the dog, just leave it at home. Just listen to what's going on around you.
Yes.
It's a really great way to switch off and unwind and get your brain back into gear,
Yeah, it's funny. I can't walk the dog with music. I don't like the, I guess, sensation of not knowing what's going on around my surroundings.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it makes me too, I guess, self-conscious about someone running up behind me, though that's never happened. But
well, paranoia is a different topic.
Yeah,
but,
but it is weird. I don't like the I guess it is that paranoia of well, I can't really know what's going on around me,
and that's stress. Realistically,
is most likely
stress of the unknown. I honestly, I go fishing as often as I can, and that is my complete switch off. I don't think about anything. I don't always have my phone on me when I'm doing it. I might if I'm taking pictures, but for the most part, even then, it's in my pocket, it's away. Even if it goes off and it's ringing, I'll check it. If it's not the wife, I won't worry about it.
No, absolutely.
If it's my wife, then obviously something's up, and it's probably just a check-in. But I don't sit there with headphones in my ears, because I want to listen to the sound. The sound of the water going through is what makes fishing kind of interesting to me, and you get to see a lot of different things. When you're out on a kayak, And trust me, I do this because I've done the bass tournament thing. You have to have your phone with you to take pictures to be able to record it to enter into the the score sheet. But if you're on a kayak, 90% of the time, your phone will end up in the drink. So if for nothing else, leave it at home for that particular reason.
Makes you think of that
Especially
commercial.
if you're out there just trying to relax, right?
Yes. What is that commercial where the kid is like, where are they parasailing?
Yeah.
And he drops it in the water.
It's painful.
But you're right.
I've lost 3 phones that way, folks.
Kayaking?
It's not fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. It is amazing how, it turns a good day pretty crappy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does, because you suddenly realise just how dependent you are on it, and that scares me even more.
Yes.
But
you're like, how do I know how to get home now?
Exactly.
Well, you know what? I think we're going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, we're going to kind of talk about some of our famous, well, it would be funny if they were famous, but I guess our favorite small business tools.
Yep.
All right. Look at myself stuck on that. Yeah.
Stress is gone. Stress is gone.
I wish I was walking. I'm going to take a nice hike today. I didn't even bring my sneaks to the work today, so I can't even take a good walk anywhere.
Yeah, honestly, like I used to do that a lot. Liquid, I'd walk around the car park.
Yeah, I did that. I haven't done it lately. I need to.
I was actually getting like 20,000 steps.
Were you?
Mainly because me and Alison would just go off and bitch about Doug most of it.
Oh.
So live streamers, you're hearing some tips on handling stress, and hopefully there's some good ones. If you've got some interesting ideas on or methods that you use to handle stress, send them in. Email us at info@smbAcceleration.com, or give us a call, or send in a message through YouTube.
Absolutely. Please, we want some feedback. Tell us what you think.
If you don't like this content, even that's even
if you don't want us to talk about stress, we won't.
If you want us to talk about other things, you got ideas for the show that you'd like us to talk, or you want to be on the show, just ping us. And there goes some more pink goop.
What's that?
Coffee? No, that's your coffee one, right?
That's coffee.
We have
This is
separate
pink
cups.
cement.
Pink cement's in this one, which is more of a chrome finish with a sticker, and the other one is his morning coffee.
It's awesome. This sticker has actually been on for like 3 years. Been through the dishwasher thousands of times. I don't know how it's stuck.
It's a good plug for that sticker company.
Yeah. Speaking of that, my wife bought stickers for my son, and like did a 100-day of school thing, and she just bought this stack of Star Wars stickers, and all of a sudden she's like going through them, and she's like, "What is this?" And it was a stormtrooper in a bikini. She's like, "This is not gonna be appropriate for school." Like,
no, really, yeah. Wow.
I was like, I didn't even know there were stormtroopers had gender.
They're all clones. So
Yeah.
why would,
Oh.
Interesting.
All right. We were talking stress, and unfortunately, or fortunately, we're done with that, and I'm feeling way less stressed.
Good. Then it worked.
It's the biggest question, Wayne, is are you going to be getting outside taking a walk today?
Probably. Today is the whole family are off, the kids are off school, my wife's home, so I'll probably just go and have some quality family time.
Excellent.
Which will involve shouting and screaming and tantrums, I'm sure, but
Oh,
nice.
that's funny. I was just thinking that because my wife and kids are off, and I will not be, but I would drive them all crazy because I would get back and be like, "Let's go hike," and they're always like, "That's all you ever want to do."
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure what the plan is for today, but I've got an hour-long drive to kind of figure it out.
Figure it out, yeah. No, for sure. I tell you, the hiking, though, that is definitely something I could always say I would find de-stresses me.
Yeah, again, you're just outside. I think that's the big part. You're outside, you're walking, you're not on your phone. And honestly, that is a huge part of our stress day to day.
You know, it's funny. Our conversation made me think before we get into small business tools that we like. A friend's dad owns this lake house, and it's beautiful. It's up in the Poconos, and one time when we were there, someone was reading a book out on the porch.
Okay.
They're like overlooking the lake and all, and his dad was like, "Why are you reading a book?" And they were like going back and forth about it. And the guy's dad, who happens to be a professor at a college, was saying that he, is an avid reader, but he doesn't read at the lake. because he'd rather be in the present there
rather in the
than
moment,
like brought to somewhere else. He's like, I could read a book in my house and be brought to some other place.
That's
but
interesting.
when I'm at this beautiful place, I'd rather be present to where I am.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, I'm no psychologist, but I'm sure there's something to be said for being in the moment as opposed to...
Yeah, and it was an interesting way to look at it.
Detaching
Like you
yourself.
were saying about, being in present while fishing and stuff, is the rustling of like the water running through or the
Or even-
lapping of the water.
I mean, if I think about the times I've been fishing, some of the ones that stick in my memory are ones where I've been standing in the river wading on fly fishing, and then I was down at Valley Creek, and if I had headphones in or I was distracted in any way, shape or form, I wouldn't have heard the splash of several deer just crossing the river below me, which is a really amazing thing to see. And then even on top of that, I was lucky enough to go salmon fishing in New York, and it was
Oh, wow.
It was one time that I went. It was just off of Lake Erie, and standing in the water after taking a dunking, and I see a bald eagle fly down and take a salmon out of the river, which was pretty amazing.
No way.
And just think, you could miss that so easily. And
Absolutely.
I think it's moments like that helps you switch off and realize there's more to life than working, and there's things that you can see that you wouldn't otherwise get to see.
Yeah, actually, one time when I had my real estate business and living in North Carolina, fortunately, I wasn't wearing headphones because I was walking the dogs and we were walking onto this trail. And as I took a step, all I heard was that bone-on-bone rattle. And I was like, oh, well, I've actually never heard that in a while before, but I do know, I'm pretty sure that I know what that sound is. That's a pretty distinct sound. And all the dogs hackled up and everything. And I was like, we're just going to take slow steps the other direction.
Yeah, there's some noises you want to hear.
Yeah, so that that always kept me free from, especially being in the woods and on, having headphones in. I want to, if it's going to come at me, if it's going to strike, I want to know, But I'll be honest, I had no idea where it was at. Like, all you heard was the rattle, and I was like, well, I can't see it.
Chances are, if you can hear it, you're pretty damn close to it. So
that was my thought. I'm like, we're going to go back the direction we came.
Yep.
Me first, and then the dogs.
Yeah, order of importance.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk tools, man.
Absolutely. We were talking about it, over the weekend and all, and I think one of the things people always ask is like, what tools do you guys use, and which ones are good or not good, or which ones do you find have value?
Yeah.
And I'll let you go first. I know what I'm guessing your number one choice is going to be, but what would be your number one choice?
Depends on what I'm doing.
I was going to say the entire suite. Would that fall as like one whole tool?
Yeah, the Adobe suite is probably the thing that I spend most of my time in. But that's because I'm doing more design-related work, right? I would also say my other go-to tool that is always on, I actually never turn it off, is Sketch, which is what I do a lot of my UX and my website designs in, even if I'm just playing around doing it for fun. I use those two tools most commonly.
Which ones in the Adobe Creative Suite do you find yourself using most often?
All of them.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, again, it depends on what I'm doing through the day. But if I'm just sketching out some ideas, I'll use, I use a pen and paper if I'm sketching out ideas. But if I want to do something rough and ready and quick, I'll probably just go into Illustrator or Photoshop.
Okay.
9 times out of 10, just to get a rough idea down. But yeah, a lot of the time I'll find it really does depend on what I'm trying to do. But though for the most part, the Adobe suite, I would say what's always on is probably Photoshop and Illustrator for the most part, and then Sketch. They're my 3 kind of go-tos. If I'm working and editing video for the show, or just editing video for a client or whatever, then obviously I'm in After Effects or Premiere, and that's pretty much what I use there.
What is the big difference between After Effects and Premiere Pro?
They are 2 very, very different platforms. So After Effects, if you're wanting to do, and we keep it very simple, if you want to do a lower third where where we're interviewing someone, we've introduced a guest and we want to bring up her name on screen, that's where you use After Effects. I mean, you'd use
you can make animations
or
and stuff.
graphics and motion graphics, basically.
Okay.
Anything visually put together. Premiere is really your editing suite, and that's where you chop pieces of video together in order to tell the story in a slightly different way, or transition from a headshot interview into some B-roll footage of a location that they're talking about at the time.
Now, do they work together, After
Yes.
Effects and Premiere Pro?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're working in After Effects and you're doing that lower third, you create the graphic, you send it over to Premiere Pro, and you place it where you want it on the screen. If you've got video that you want to use and you're putting graphics on top of it, you would prepare your video in Premiere Pro, put it over into After Effects, you'd work on the graphics, then you'd put it back into Premiere Pro in order to optimize it and actually prepare it to be used.
Oh, interesting.
So they can flip-flop quite well.
So really, I mean, Adobe is the de facto standard for professional design tools.
Professional design tools, yeah. And there's there's tons of newer ones coming along, but I will, Sketch has probably been the one that has changed web designers the most. You either use Sketch or use I think it's called XD on Adobe.
Yep.
And I've used both, honestly, and I like XD just as much as Sketch, but again, it's what you're comfortable using. I'm really, really familiar with all the tools, and I can flip between them all, and it all depends on if I'm working for a client and they have a specific need and they only want a specific file type. That will determine where I end up. But yeah, I mean, Adobe Suite has been around. I mean, it killed Quark. Quark still exists, but I can't think of anyone who uses it.
Their move to this subscription model was genius.
Yes and no. Yes, from a business point of view for them, from a user point of view, it can be a little annoying.
Absolutely.
But what I will say is they constantly keep updating, which is really good.
They do.
Improving it, making extra functions and features available to you, so it gets better and better. So, and you're paying that subscription. It's not ridiculous.
No.
Honestly, it's very cost effective.
And they are constantly updating it. I feel like they're become more iterative on it than they have to be on when it was out of the box. A new version came out.
The other thing that, again, not a lot of people use, but if you're like myself, a designer, or even if you've got Adobe Suite and you're doing social media graphics for it, the Adobe Image Suite is really good too. So you can get royalty-free images off the Adobe stock library. Mm-hmm. You can port them over, create a library of assets that you can work with. So that's a really useful tool too. And plus they have a series of mobile tools that enable you to kind of do some things on the fly. If you
I think you mentioned Photoshop Mix before, Photoshop Express.
Yeah, there's a bunch out there.
And all some of them are paid like part of your creative suite.
They're all part of your creative suite, pretty much. You can have them individually, but if you've got the suite, you don't pay anything for them other than what you already are.
Okay. I'll tell you one that kind of pairs with all those that I find as a valuable app tool / website is like Envato Elements for the cost. Yeah,
that's a great tool as well. Again, it's not necessarily a tool, but it gives you access to things to help you speed up processes, or if you haven't got a designer on hand, you can at least use something from that has a good starting point.
Yes,
and it's well put together.
As someone who is not a professional graphic designer, but a lot of times needs things for clients or things I'm working on, being able to start from a good template or like that's already well laid out really saves so much time. And as a small business owner, we know there's only such limited time in a day. If you can kind of speed up the process, they're pretty relatively cheap subscription is worthwhile. You get the stock images, stock video, After Effects templates, WordPress templates, some plugins and stuff. But for me, I find even the access sometimes to the social media templates are kind of invaluable. Being able to go in and just put together a quick set of Google display ads or something, especially if you're one of those companies that want to spend the $1 a day. It's a great way to kind of get it up and running. And
coming off of that is a new tool that I found earlier in the week, last week, was the Relay That, which is an online tool. You pay for it, but you can create all your social media graphics, your print pieces, everything to maintain the consistency of your brand in one platform.
Interesting. I have to check that out.
So it's called relaythat.com. It's really worth checking out. There's an entrepreneur version, which I like. It's a little cheaper. It's got some limitations. And then there's an agency or enterprise level version. So if you're doing ads, this enables you to create a series of different ads. All the templates for those ads are in there. If you're doing LinkedIn and you're trying to fix all your social media graphics,
so
it's the
one. You can just kind of rip them out. Then they're all looking very professional. They're looking consistent.
Exactly, and it's got a very simple learning curve on it. So it's actually
which is key
really
compared to Adobe.
Yeah, I mean Adobe. I spent 15 odd years in Adobe, so I'm pretty. I would say very, very proficient.
Yeah.
Whereas if it is a steep learning curve, and so a tool like a Relay that, and there's others out there
like Canvas,
like Canva and a few others, they really help you design something. All you need is an eye for what looks good.
Yeah, and sometimes that's you could always use something like what's the website Moat, right?
Yeah,
where you could put in something Moat.com, and it shows you very successful versions of ads, and sometimes you just look for one in your industry and kind of create your own version of it.
Yeah, and you can also use it for competitive analysis. So,
absolutely,
which I really like. So other tools, I mean, Google Analytics, you spend a lot of time.
Analytics is huge. Google Ads Manager, Facebook Business Manager. I think there's a lot of them. I think for me, Google Ads Analytics is huge. You have to know what's going on with your website and your social media efforts.
Absolutely, and we'd be remiss without saying Facebook Manager, even though we both
give it a hard time.
Gives us a lot of pain. It is still a great tool, and
you can reach a couple billion people.
Yeah, without it, you're losing a lot of potential reach.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? That's all we got for today, and until next Monday, a non-holiday Monday. If you missed anything today, be sure to check out the podcast anywhere podcasts are found, or visit SMBAcceleration.com, and you can catch up with everything that happened today. Till next week, Wayne.
For me, it's goodbye, and don't forget, always give us a call if you want to on 888-329-3306, and we can talk to you and answer some questions live on air.
Excellent. Can't wait. Till next Monday.
Have a good week, everyone.
See you.
All right, folks on Livestream, thanks for joining us today. Again, same goes out to you guys. If there is something you want to talk to us about, if you've got some content ideas or topic ideas you want to hear about, just ping us and we'll happily do it live.
Absolutely.
And until next time, we will see you soon.
See ya.